Climate change. Earth's climate. It has been the subject of a debate had by billions, all walks of life. A debate had by all societies. Earth's climate has very little to do with man, and has changed through a series of cyclical events. It has changed past civilizations and lost them to the solar winds. Now our society is at that same precipice. And we will face those same conditions that our ancestors did thousands of years ago. Back in a time where the stories we hear today came from. Were we given clues by those that knew a secret we haven't known until now? Follow me on a journey through hellfire and understand what our future holds. For us to understand Earth's climate, we must first understand the mechanisms that mainly controls it. Earth's climate is mainly controlled by the sun through solar cycles and also what's known as the Milankovitch cycles. Climate forcing's main factor is solar forcing, and has been for all of eternity, followed by albedo, grading of Earth's axis, greenhouse gases, particles, and the Milankovitch cycles. Our sun is a sphere of mainly hydrogen and helium with a much smaller amounts of isotopes like tritium mixed in, which is where our ocean's waters came from, star water. As hydrogen and helium is fused together, energy is released in the form of radiative heat, but that's not all. Plasma of charged particles are created, radioactive and radiating outwards from within the radiative zone, taking a single photon upwards of 100,000 years to escape it. For those that are unaware, the sun follows an 11-year cycle, which is really only halfway, as a full cycle to get back to where it started takes 22 years. Beyond 22 years, it has been difficult to predict the strength of the coming cycles. Every day, new technologies and methodologies are allowing us to gain a new understanding of how our sun works, especially through fusion reactors. Here we see the layers of the sun, and starting within we have the core. Next, moving outwards is where the radiative zone is, and this is the zone we can't see past. Further outwards from there is the convection zone. This is where the meridional flow occurs. And last but not least, we have the outer shell named the corona. As you see, the sun spins left to right, and notice the rotation is faster at the equator than it is at the poles and bends the poloidal field. The sun has a dipole magnet field, much like a bar magnet. Also, it contains two magnetic fields caused by the solar dynamo, and they are called the poloidal and toroidal fields. During the beginning of the 11-year cycle, the poloidal field is more prominent, but as the solar dynamo ramps up, the toroidal field gets stretched and compressed. This occurs closer to the middle of the cycle at the peak and causes the toroidal field to twist on itself, much like a rubber band, and as a result, pokes out and then back into the convection zone. As the cycle begins, the sunspots occur closer to the poles, and as time passes, they move closer to the equator. Sunspots are comprised of two parts called umbra and penumbra. The differences in color are differences in temperature. Here you see a chart for an 11-year cycle, and this one shows the cycle within cycles. To understand these cycles, we must journey outwards and explore the heliospheric conditions. The sun causes what's known as the heliospheric current sheet. This sheet has a ripple called the Parker spiral. Every 7 to 10 days, the Earth crosses the threshold of the Parker spiral and causes a shift of our magnetic field called the phi angle. At the top of this graph, you will see the phi angle shift. The differences in color show the magnetic shift between north and south, as the threshold of the ripple causes the shift every 7 to 10 days. Now that we understand that, we must travel further out to gain an understanding of the cycles and what causes it. The Milky Way. Using what we learn in our solar system, it can be used at the galactic scale. Being that we see this in faraway galaxies, with plasma and dust particles following the magnetic field lines, so too must a galactic current sheet exist that our solar system is connected to, like a basic circuit on a grand scale. The time scale our solar system passes the threshold of the galactic current sheet is on average every 12,000 years. For many of you, something just clicked. Not only does this match up with many geological time scales, but also lines up perfectly with the aforementioned Milankovitch cycles. Just like our sun's full cycle is 22 years, the Milankovitch full cycle is 23,000 years, which means halfway, roughly 11,500 years, well within the average of passing of the galactic current sheet threshold. Now a picture is unfolding, and some of you are connecting the dots. For those that haven't, we must go back where we came from, home. To explain it simply, on average every 12,000 years, our solar system crosses the threshold of the galactic current sheet. When this happens, it causes changes in our solar system, to every planet, every moon, and especially the sun. Researchers at Cambridge University have found signs of gamma-ray supernova event that happened on this planet and occurred around the time scale of the Gothenburg magnetic excursion event, Earth's pole shift. And the very first line says, planetary habitability may be affected by exposure to gamma radiation from supernova. The issue with this finding of a large amount of radiation from a global event that occurred is that it's thought to have originated from outside the solar system. New findings suggest that it actually originated from our star. A massive mini-nova event that happened at the same time scale, a pole shift, Milankovitch cycles change, beginning of the Ice Age, and grand solar minima. And now we know the mechanisms that cause it. To grasp how this affects Earth, we must look to the past and see what our ancestors did to make it through the most troubled period in Earth's cycles. In caves all around the world, we find carvings of a lost time, a time when a civilization has a great event in their records. From floods to volcanic eruptions, from washed out civilizations like Atlantis, written about by ancient scholars, to flash frozen woolly mammoths with buttercups still in their mouths. Something big happened here. There is no question. This issue has been in discussion since the time of Einstein.
were the understanding of the mechanism that causes the unlocking of Earth's crust at the low velocity zone. Now we know those mechanisms. A massive release from the sun, with muon protrusion that penetrates deep into Earth's crust, causes magma intrusion on a continental scale. This will unlock those zones and cause a changing of the landscape never seen before by modern man. Just recently, a book that was deemed classified by the CIA was recently released as a redacted copy. This book is called The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas. In this book outlines Earth's disaster cycle in great detail. The fact that it was classified should worry you, and only released because law requires it to be. It shows that a great event takes place: unlocking of the plates, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tidal waves, the size of skyscrapers and bigger, and change in axial tilt, a change in continents, a change in life as we know it. But I know what you're thinking. We are still here. Humans in other life have survived this once before. Humans have since thrived during the warm, calm years in the last 12,000 years. And this time, it's different than any other time in the universal history. There is something we use every day that will change our chances at survival this time around. And there will be no escaping it. March 11, 2011, Fukushima, Japan. A 9.0 earthquake struck off the coast of Japan, sending a tsunami to the Fukushima Daiichi power station. In the next few days, 3 100% full core meltdowns occurred and caused multiple hydrogen gas explosions containing MOX, mixed oxide fuel. This fuel contains a mix of uranium and plutonium, and decay chains containing upwards of 1,000 radioactive isotopes. Some of these isotopes are water-soluble, including uranium and obviously tritium, or H3O, the radioactive form of hydrogen. Through research and calculations made through evaporation equilibrium coefficients of these transuranics and radionuclides, they are finding that these radioactive elements and isotopes are bonding and evaporating with molecules, just as the stable forms bond and move around the planet. Every day, we consume this radioactivity, getting inside us and getting trapped inside our bodies. Some will be taken up by the body like strontium. It acts like calcium, and the body doesn't know the difference and stores it in your bones. Cesium is stored uniformly to soft tissue, and plutonium is deposited in bones, liver, and kidneys. What's important to note here is that exposure to ionizing radiation, both external and internal, primarily causes cancer of all shapes and sizes. Cancer has a latency period unlike any other. That makes it next to impossible to find the cause of every cancer that has ever occurred in history. That means the only details that could be associated with nuclear power are hidden in those billions of cancer cases. Exposure to ionizing radiation happened to just about every one of us through over 2,000 known open-air atomic bomb tests that occurred between the years 1945 and 1996. In 1945, camera company Kodak was given notice of the test. Thereafter, the Trinity test caused damage to the film they were making in the Midwestern states. If it caused damage to that film, what kind of damage do you think it did to our grandparents, to our parents, to us? Remember, this has not stopped since it started. Back on that fateful day, humans dragged all life into the atomic age. Today, we are seeing signs of that genome damage, that has occurred to all of us, passed on to generations, passing on the damage that has taken place, all hidden under the guise of running in your family history or hereditary. From atomic bomb testing to industrial incidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima, right by the Pacific Ocean. A decade has not gone by that the entire world hasn't been subjected to man-made radioactivity that is traveling around the globe every single day and causing autoimmune diseases and cancer. While the doctors treat the effects and not the causes, people take pills to mask the symptoms of an ailment no one on the planet even knows exactly what it was caused by. We see in research more mutations are caused in the third generation. Now ask yourself, what is causing all the autism, mutations of every kind, even to viruses? COVID-19 can't even be counted correctly. How could any other illness? Our planet, sun, and solar system experiences something on a grand scale globally every 12,000 years. We know how it happens and why. We know how civilizations of old have escaped the massive release from the sun and the devastation it causes on the planet by going within. In these caves, they had to stay in while the onslaught of charged particles from the sun drive deep into everything, including the Earth, using the caves to shield them while civilization itself is lost, leaving only clues of its destruction. All the while, the landscape that they knew changed to what we see today. This is why only the megastructures still exist, because I believe they were built for this scenario. Knowledge passed on from previous civilizations to help those in the future understand the coming days and to learn the mistakes of times past. We have not learned those lessons, and now we may have sealed not only our fate, but all complex life on this planet. Over 450 nuclear reactors and over 200 research facilities globally, with the vast majority in the Northern Hemisphere. If researchers are correct in their findings, then that means every water-cooled nuclear reactor goes into meltdown. All at the same time. Just like with Fukushima, most are by a major water source, and like a domino effect, one by one, will melt down, explode. All these power stations will then be left unmanned, and it will be every man, woman, and child for themselves. Add all the chemical, fossil fuels, and storage facilities, virus, and disease research facilities containing everything that would kill everything possible, and there is no future for life on this planet with what we have in place. We must work diligently to get all reactors shut down, and possible safe plan to get it all off this planet in time. That is the only real answer. When you turn your head to all this and go on with your daily lives without taking action for yourselves and your loved ones, will you at least share this with others so they can make that choice for themselves? Like I said in the beginning, we are at a precipice. Will you act? Predictions of the grand solar minimum are set to take place next solar cycle in 2030. That means at the peak of the cycle before it, the weakened magnetic field will not be able to trap and hold the energy it normally would. That is the time scale, written in the evidence, both what we know today and the evidence left behind.